And concerns are growing over the labor market after the Federal Reserve cut interest rates last week. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says the country's close to maximum employment, adding the labor market, quote, bears close watching as payroll and job creation has declined over the last few months. Acting Secretary of Labor Julie Su joins me now for more on this. Secretary Su, thanks so much for coming on. I want to ask you about these concerns. Are you worried, and how worried are you, about a more significant slowdown in hiring?
Look, this economy has had the most extended period of strong, stable growth in a very, very long time. And if you remember, when President Biden and Vice President Harris first came to office, most people predicted that would be impossible. We were coming out of a global pandemic that the prior administration had basically, denied was a real thing, even though many Americans and people around the world died because of it. And instead, the Biden-Harris agenda was to make sure that we build an economy that was strong for everybody, in which workers do well and share in prosperity. And now we've, almost 16 million jobs created just in the last 4 years. We've had a sustained period of unemployment. It was under 4% for the longest stretch since Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. And we continue to have very high GDP, consumer spending. And so this is an economy that is strong and stable. I'm not concerned at all about a downturn. No indicators demonstrate that that's what's going to happen.
As they do expect the unemployment rate to increase to 4.4% by year end. What's your response to that?
Again, keep in mind that even a 4% unemployment rate was considered nearly impossible just a few years ago. And what we've seen is that federal policies matter, leadership matters, and what President Biden and Vice President Harris said is we should use the federal government to invest in America and invest in America's workers. And now we have over 60,000 projects that have broken ground to repair roads and bridges. We are making sure that every community that turns on the faucet gets clean drinking water and has access to high-speed, reliable internet. We've invested in manufacturing so that we're actually making things in America again instead of just exporting jobs. And so those are all a real turnaround from the policies of the last administration. And so the unemployment rate that we have seen was, again, not promised, and many people thought impossible. And we'll continue to do the work to make sure that this economy is one that works for everyone.
Now, last week's rate cut announcement was the first since 2020. So how can we expect these new rates to affect the labor market, and when will we see those impacts?
So, I don't comment on Fed policy specifically, but the cut in interest rates are really, about making sure that that people can get a car loan, get a home loan, right? It's meant to help ensure that the things that people need, they can get. And at the same time, we continue to see a very strong labor market. We've seen labor force participation rate also really high. And in fact, for women, we broke the record for women in the labor force. And then just a few months ago, we broke our own record. And so again, all indicators point to a strong economy and a fairer economy, where wages have gone up. In fact, the rise in wages exceeds the rise in prices. That means a little bit more breathing room in the pockets of working families.
Now, to that point, on average, Americans' wages have been going up at a faster pace than inflation for more than a year. But many workers say they don't feel that impact. Why do you think that is?
So workers that I talk to do feel it. I've been traveling the country and hearing from people who just want to use their hunger, their passion, their drive, their skills in a good job that will allow them to pay the rent or the mortgage, put food on the table, feel a sense of security. And we are seeing that happening in communities across the country, from Lansing, Michigan, to Birmingham, Alabama, to Phoenix, Arizona, and everywhere in between. And at the same time, some of these polls indicate that people are saying that maybe their own financial situation is better, but they're still worried about it overall, which, is also not surprising because we live in political times where I do think there are some politicians who benefit from saying that everything is bad, right? That nothing is going well. And we've been through a lot as the pandemic, the economic recovery, all of these things, I think, still give people a need to, a little bit of time to feel that the ground under them is secure again. But the other thing is that people are tired of being taken for granted. Workers are tired of not getting their fair share. They're tired of being made to feel like they're invisible. And in the Biden-Harris economy, working people have been able to exercise their voice. They've been able to join unions, including in industries and parts of the country where people thought that was not going to be possible. They're making more demands at the bargaining table and increasing their wages, getting basic things like health benefits so they go to the doctor when they're sick, a secure retirement so they know that at the end of a long work life they can actually relax and have some security. And so those are the kinds of things. This is a fundamental shift in the way that the economy was thought about before, right? Which was that in order for the economy to be strong, wages had to be low. And workers could not be doing well. That is not the economy that we are building here, and we know we have more work to do to make sure that everybody feels it.
And on that note, Secretary, this is just anecdotally, but I can tell you in conversations that I have, grocery prices seems to be the big thing that people often bring up. What can we do to try to combat so-called sticky inflation in areas like that?
Right. So, we are at a time now where, both inflation rates and interest rates are going down. And the thing about prices is we have been laser focused on making sure that working people have more in their pockets so they have more to spend. At the same time, high prices are a problem. And part of the reason for that is corporate consolidation, right? Is companies who have taken advantage of a pandemic, taken advantage of the economic situation to hike up prices. And they're able to do that because there's just not a lot of other choices, not a lot of other places that consumers can go. So the same forces that workers are fighting against, right, the idea of unchecked corporate power, is what consumers want. We want real choices, and that's why this administration has been so focused also on making sure that companies don't have the kind of monopoly power that leads to really high prices.
All right, Acting Secretary of Labor Julia Su, we appreciate your time today, Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you.